Does your child argue a lot? Do you sometimes feel like they've turned into a professional debater? Have you ever experienced a scenario like the following where you ask your child to please put on a jacket because it's cold outside? They argue back, I don't ever get cold. I don't need a jacket. You respond, well, we don't want you to get sick, so please put on a jacket. They respond back, no, I don't get sick and I'm not cold and it's my body. So you respond, well, let's just try it anyway. And now they enter a full-blown rant about how it's their body and that you don't even understand them. If you want to break the cycle of constant arguing, then we need to understand where the argument is coming from and what need it's meeting. So yes, some of it is a need to be in control. Our children love to have control. We all do, really. But some of it is really a need to feel heard and understood. And sometimes they even have a decent point to make. So let's break this all down. There are a number of reasons why our kids can become big arguers. And we'll talk in a few minutes about what to do about it. But one is obviously control. I think when our kids perceive the world as being chaotic, they do try to exert control to try to feel safe. Another is that they want autonomy, right? Sometimes they feel that they don't have enough of their own choices. A third might be something like we make a demand of them believing that the expectation is reasonable and they just don't feel that way. So let's give some examples. Say mom says, okay, we're having breakfast, it's time for pancakes. And the child said, I don't want pancakes, I want waffles. Mom says, but pancakes is what we have. And your child launches into an explanation of why pancakes are inferior and why they never get what they want and it's not fair and all of those things. That could be control, that could be autonomy. Is it really about the waffles in the end? It might just be about wanting to feel some sense of autonomy in their own ability to make choices. Another example might be many autistic kids struggle with black and white thinking and rigidity, so they push back sometimes when something doesn't match their internal logic. Things like, why dishes can't sit in the sink overnight. Well, to them, it doesn't make a difference. And their logic, they just can't understand our logic when we say it needs to be done. An example closely related to rigid thinking is a rigid sense of justice and fairness that autistic kids often feel. So if a sibling, for example, is assigned a chore that only takes 10 minutes and your autistic child is assigned a chore that takes 12 or 15, you might face a heated argument about why that's so unfair and why they shouldn't have to do that chore. The example of facing an expectation that's too high might be a dad is helping their child with homework and they're getting close to the end and the child says, I can't do one more thing, that's it, I'm finished. And the dad said, come on, you only have one more, you can do this. And the argument escalates and the child says, I can't, and all homework is stupid, and school is stupid, right? That might be that the dad thought they just had such a little bit left that of course they could do it, but the child really just couldn't meet that expectation, so they argue back. I'm sure that many of you have lots of examples. I just wanted to give you a sense of some of the common ones that come up and why they might be happening other than just the fact that your child is being defiant. Here are some tools on how to break the constant cycle of arguing. First, you want to acknowledge the feelings that they have that are driving the argumentativeness. So validate first and then redirect. So here's an example. Say you tell your child that they have to put their seatbelt on and the child refuses, saying, it's too tight, I hate seatbelts. And you're rushed and it's the morning, you got to get them to school. And you say, well, it's the law, you have to do it. And that seems to fuel the argument more. And now the child is arguing about why seatbelt laws are stupid. So instead of pushing back saying you have to do it, it's the law, even though both of those things are true, it's just not getting you where you want to go. So instead, you might try acknowledging the feeling. You could say, I hear that it feels tight and it sounds like it's uncomfortable. Let's see if we can make an adjustment to make it feel better. That can often diffuse the argument because when kids feel heard, they don't feel the need to continue to argue as much to prove their point. A second approach, in addition to validating, of course, is to sow the seeds of and model collaboration. So say you tell your child to pick up their toys and your child pushes back. I didn't even make the mess. Instead of saying, well, clean it up anyway, right? Which sometimes we say it because we just need it to get done. But in the end, we show them that we try to get things through force. And guess who tries to get things through force thereafter? Instead, we might say, I hear that you feel is unfair. What would be a fair way for us to clean up? At the end of the evening, I get that it's hard to have that kind of patience, but it does help stop the arguing, it gets it done more quickly, and it models a really good skill for your child. And a third tool is to set clear boundaries and enforce them. This one's a little tricky because it requires some nuance. On the one hand, if we're always really rigid about all of the boundaries without considering whether we set them properly in the right place, our children can feel really unheard. On the other hand, if every boundary is open to negotiation, that can fuel arguing as well. Here's how I like to think about it. There are some boundaries that are non-negotiable at all. You have to wear a seatbelt, non-negotiable. But there are others where you can hold the boundary firm, but collaborate within the boundary. So for example, bedtime is a great example. Your child has a bedtime of 8 o'clock. So it may be that instead of one story, they get 2, but either way, they finish at 8 o'clock. So if you want 2 stories, we just need to start the stories a little sooner. If the arguing or attempts at negotiation continue from there, that's when you also want to validate the feelings. I can hear that you really want another story or a glass of water or all of the things. And we'll do that tomorrow. We'll try to do it in advance of 8 o'clock, but now it's bedtime, right? You can do it in a loving way, an understanding way. You can help them feel heard and still hold the boundary. The less reactive you are, the less fuel there is for argument. And here's how to handle one more tricky scenario. What happens if your child doesn't accept the facts? Say you have a plan to go to the park and it's raining, and your child says, but it's not raining that bad, we can still go. They argue because accepting disappointment is hard, and arguing delays the feeling of frustration for a few moments. Here's how to help them accept reality without a meltdown. Say, for example, your child has a planned play date with a child, and that child gets sick. You tell your child, I'm sorry, Susie can't come over because she's sick. And your child responds, but she's not that sick. She can definitely come over. And what you want to respond is, that's not up to you. It's not your choice. But that will just cause the argument to escalate. Instead, what you want to try doing is first validate. I know you're really disappointed and this stinks. I wish it could happen today too. Do you want to call her and make a plan for next time? This works better because it acknowledges the child's feelings without debating reality. It gives them something to move forward with instead of getting stuck in the frustration. Your child's arguing isn't about disrespect. It's about needing to feel heard, needing to put off feelings of disappointment, needing to communicate that they can't meet the expectation that you have. So when we change how we respond, it can make all the difference. You can break the cycle without constant battles. I would love to hear from you in the comments. What's like the weirdest or smallest thing that your child argues about regularly? I'm sure that we all have so many examples, and it would be fun to compare them in the comments. I'm also happy to give you a little help with how to handle things if you want such help in the comments. I hope this was helpful for you. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I hope you'll consider giving it a like and subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one.